Hello BookTube, welcome back to my channel. My name is Juan. I am just one reader. I am filming this video in one of my consulting rooms. This is actually one of the consulting rooms that I have at home. So I just realized I haven't done a video in here in this space in ages, if not like actual years. Anyway, so I realized I also hadn't done a wrap-up kind of video, like a catch-up wrap-up talking about multiple books that I've read recently in like at least a few months. So I don't know why that is. I think lately I've just been more dedicated to like reviewing individual books or doing some other things. Anyway, I just want to wrap up like the books that I've read since what was like November, some of them maybe October probably. Anyway, I've just kind of lost track of things, so this is going to be a very relaxed, casual, kind of confused video. I should take my glasses off. Okay, so the first book that I will be wrapping up in this video is The Ink Black Heart. This is book 6 in the Cormoran Strike series by J.K. Rowling or Robert Galbraith. This book deals with cyber investigation. So Robin and Strike, the main characters, the detectives in this story, have to go online and they have to deal with a lot of cyber things. They have to investigate and look into Twitter threads and social media posts and online conversations, and that part of the format, the structure of the book really sort of kept me from enjoying it. I thought the book was incredibly long, and that's saying something for a Cormoran Strike book. But this was overly long, really bloated. Didn't really find it all that interesting. Some parts of this were great, but overall the book would have benefited greatly from a lot of editing, a lot of cutting, like a lot of editing, and I didn't particularly like those kinds of cyber texts. I do applaud my queen, Jo Rowling, for trying to do something creative and experimental, and you know, she really went for it, but I just thought those like online things that you have to read throughout the book were just very heavy and very confusing, and it was not a book that I enjoyed. So I think I gave it like 2 or 3 stars. I honestly don't remember, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend that book, but I would recommend that you read the series. More on that later. Then I read Poor Things. Poor Things by Alistair Gray. I wanted to read this because, well, I bought this book like 10 years ago and it's just been sitting on my shelf, and now, I remember, I think I bought this book even before I came on BookTube with my own channel, because I remember I bought this book because Jen Campbell, like one of the original booktubers that I fell in love with, and I would just like take in all of her recommendations. She really talked greatly about this book, and another book that I also bought and loved because of her recommending it was John Burnside's The Dumb House, which is a great book, much better than this one actually. But anyway, this was a recommendation, an old recommendation from Jen Campbell. And I liked it. I wouldn't say I loved it, but yeah, I read this book, A, because I already had it for like 10 years, I've had it, and B, because the new movie adaptation by Yorgos Lanthimos, starring Emma Stone, is coming out. I think it's already come out in some countries like the US, but here in Mexico, it hasn't come out. I think it's all of those Oscar contenders are coming out in theaters probably in January, February. That's usually the best time of year here for movies. So I haven't been able to watch the movie, but from what I've gathered online from reviewers and just random people, the movie is going to be much better than the book. Don't get me wrong, I liked the book. It's about this woman who dies, and this is not really a spoiler. It's the premise. You cannot consider a premise to be a spoiler, I don't think. So it's about the corpse of a woman who was pregnant when she died, and then these like Frankenstein-esque kind of doctor or mad scientist, who I really like that character, sort of revives that body, but he does certain things that I won't actually spoil for you, which are really interesting and dark and wrong and macabre, but a great story comes out of that, and a great lesson, and a great I love when art does that. And I do consider this book to be art, in the sense that it takes like really primitive, dark fantasies of the mind, of the unconscious mind. Look, I'm talking like a psychoanalyst. I guess I am a psychoanalyst. So this book takes like really dark, primitive, childish fantasies that are there, present in the deepest corners of our minds, and does something beautiful but twisted with it. And I think that's artistic. To me, that's the definition, the psychoanalytical definition of artistic value. So I really liked that. The story, the structure, the formatting, the dialogue, the actual writing style of the book itself, sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. So it was kind of a weird mixed bag for me. I would give this book, I apologize for my voice. I just have a lot of like phlegm in my vocal folds this morning. It's really, really cold here. So I would say this is like a 3-star book for me, but I really appreciate and applaud and commend what it's doing. And I cannot wait to see that movie. Man, it looks amazing. Okay, so then I read 2 books that really disappointed me. Well, one of them didn't really disappoint me that much, which was The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, which I always thought or considered one of my favorite books. And now, the second time around, I just found it not as impressive and not as fun, not as immersive as I remembered it being. But, you know, the last time I read this book had been, like 12 years ago. So 12 years is a lifetime, to me at least. So I can definitely see how I have grown as a reader since I had last read it 12 years ago. So I liked it, but I bumped it down from 5 stars to more like a 4-star read, which I still would recommend this book. I think it's a good fantasy. It has some really good chapters and scenes and conversations, some moments of really inspired dialogue, but and sometimes the writing can be very beautiful, but not all the time. And then the book that I really was quite disappointed by was The Wise Man's Fear, which is the sequel to The Name of the Wind. This book just showcased a lot of writing flaws, in my humble opinion. I just thought this book had no real sense of direction or purpose or cohesion, and that doesn't mean to say that I didn't enjoy the parts of the book. Like, there are some sections in the book here that I absolutely loved, and I thought they were really well written, and just some parts were really, really great. But again, I'm just so frustrated. It was very chaotic and messy, and I don't see how this story could actually be like I don't think how the author can really conclude this story in just one more book. I just don't see it, but I hope I will be proven wrong. So I gave The Wise Man's Fear like a 3-star rating, being quite generous. Then I read a book that just really, really surprised me. I'd heard that it was pretty solid, but when I actually picked it up, I was immediately taken with the story, the writing, the characters, the everything, and that is The Running Grave, book 7 in the Robert Galbraith series, J.K. Rowling's Cormoran Strike series. Book 6, which I just talked about, The Ink Black Heart, had been such a letdown and such a chore to read, honestly, that I was not expecting to love this book. but oh my God, this is going to be in my top 10 of the year. It was just such a delight to read. It was terrifying. It was so suspenseful, a perfect thriller. The characters, I think this is a showcase, again, a showcase of everything that J.K. Rowling is great at. The storytelling, the suspense, the emotional reaction in the reader that is conjured up by her with certain scenes and certain like long chunks of writing. I was reminded of how great a storyteller she can be, and she is. In the Cormoran Strike series, she's sort of been a little mixed as an author for me, but here, this was just an amazing book. I would not give it 5 stars, but I would give it like a 4.5 stars, because yeah, this book was such a thriller, so well done. I was just like completely glued to my chair. I could not put the book down. It was amazing. And then I read probably one of the most disappointing books ever for me, which is Patrick Rothfuss's new novella, The Narrow Road Between Desires. The title of the book should have told me what I had in store. The title of the book is so pretentious and yet so empty at the same time. And that's what the book ultimately was for me. Maybe you have a different opinion of this book. Some people actually love it, and they have told me so in my video talking about this book. A lot of people liked it, or liked it enough. I did not like it enough, well enough. I thought the book was very pretentious, kind of simplistic, but not in like a fairy tale simplistic kind of way, but just I could not see what the point was in this book. It doesn't mean to say that the story doesn't have good ingredients, but I just don't think those ingredients were cooked properly to a satisfying result personally. So I didn't like the book, which is a shame. So those are the books that I have finished. Now let me tell you about the books that I'm currently reading. I will not be able to finish any of these books by the end of the year. I am filming this video on December 29th, I think it is. Yeah, the 29th. So there's no way I'm going to be able to finish these books in 2 days. But I do want to sort of give you some of my opening impressions. So I am currently still struggling with Gorman Gast, the first book in the Gorman Gast trilogy, which is Tide Has Grown. But don't get me wrong, I don't like that word struggling. I'm not struggling like in a negative way. I'm just taking this book in really small doses, really small chunks, because the book is so intricate in its writing, in its creation of the world, and it's so delicious to read. It's like good chocolate. You don't want to just eat an entire chocolate bar. You want to like take little squares at a time and just really take it in, and it's a joy to read, but it is a chore sometimes. The writing is quite dense in a good Dickensian kind of way, but it can be dense. So I'm still reading that. I am reading a fantasy book that is really interesting, The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. I am finding this book so strange. A part of me is loving it, especially because of the experimental things that it's doing. In terms of storytelling, it's very dreamlike, it's very trance-like. It really puts you into a trance when you're reading it. I actually like reading this book when I'm completely alone, when there's no one home, and I actually put like earplugs in. I want to be completely taken into or immersed into the writing here, because it's something really special, I think. So I really like that part of it, the experimental, dreamlike quality that it has, but at the same time, I still haven't kind of clicked with the characters or with the story or with anything in an emotional level yet. So I'm still reading this book, and hopefully I will find more things to love. Then I'm also reading a little nonfiction book about psychoanalysis. I am a psychoanalyst, but this book, I wanted to read it. This is Si el psicoanálisis cura, which is in Spanish, which is yes, psychoanalysis does heal. That's the translation, I guess. And I wanted to read this book because in here, the author, who is a very renowned psychoanalyst, living in France, I believe, he's sort of making a statement for psychoanalysis and telling people, like a general audience, this is like for a general audience, telling them the positive side of psychoanalysis, because in certain countries, psychoanalysis is not as popular. For example, in the USA, in certain countries, they have gone towards different branches of psychotherapy, which of course are rooted in psychoanalysis, but they are just not effective in the same way that psychoanalysis can be. Psychoanalysis is much more, it's deeper, it's more confrontational. It confronts you with yourself, which can be off-putting, especially in certain countries with certain cultures where people don't want to be confronted, people want to be pleased, people want to be coddled a bit, and people don't want to think about uncomfortable truths. But in some other countries, like in Latin America, Mexico, in Europe, like in Argentina, in many parts of Europe, psychoanalysis is thriving and it's evolving and it's growing and it's helping people, it's helping communities, all kinds of people. And this book tells you why that is and why psychoanalysis still to this day is the better, the best kind of tool that we have in terms of mental health, but real mental health, which, you know, is kind of course I'm saying that because I am a psychoanalyst myself. So, but yeah, I wanted to read this book just to see how the author relays this information to a general audience, because sometimes as psychoanalysts we tend to be really we think in a way that is very psychoanalytical because of our training, which is very dense and very like profound. And so it's really nice to see an older, more experienced, more knowledgeable, wiser psychoanalyst than myself sort of explain things to a general audience. I think that's a level of being synthetic and being schematic and succinct that I really, really enjoy reading. And then finally, the other book that I'm currently reading is Dracula by Bram Stoker, because why not? You know, it's getting colder and colder each day here in Mexico City, and I just felt like I wanted to finally read Dracula. I had never read Dracula before, and so far I'm only like 40 pages in. This is good stuff. I'm liking it. I like the writing style. I like reading the book. It's very easy to read. It's very accessible. It doesn't feel boring. It doesn't feel like a classic. Oh my God, it's such a chore to read. No, this is actually pretty enjoyable. So I wanna start the new year with this classic under my belt. Anyway, those are the books that I wanted to discuss in this super long wrap up. I apologize for people watching this video, because this is, let's face it, these are the ramblings of a confused man. But anyway, leave a comment if you want to do so. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in a couple of days with my most anticipated video of the year, which is the best books that I read in 2023. Bye.